Welcome to the podcast Living by Oak Values. My name is Robert and I host this podcast with my friend Gary. Join us today as we dive deep and share meaningful stories, discuss values that help shape our lives. We will explore how we use these values to guide us through life, shaping our decisions, relationships, and raising our kids. We are embraced in a journey of personal growth, navigating our own paths. We are committed to living by these values, passing them on to our children. We are thrilled to have you here today and can't wait to share our latest episodes. Whether you're a longtime listener or just now discovering us, welcome. Check us out at northmancoaching.com. Feel free to introduce yourselves in the comments, and you're welcome to join our Northman Legacy crew and let us know what topics you're most interested in hearing about. Sign up with your emails for behind-the-scenes sneak peeks and exciting updates. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Happy listening. All right, and we have a special guest with us. Gary, would you like to introduce?
Sure. Our guest today is Trudy Comperta. Trudy, how are you today?
Good. How are you
Very
doing,
good.
Gary?
I'm well. What is the value that you have chosen today?
Calmness was my top pick
Okay. So why did you pick calmness, just overall?
because I needed to get by every day. Really, it's just that was the most important thing, and I think growing up too, it was a pretty calm household that I came from. My father was, I don't think he ever really raised his voice or said a bad word or anything. So he was a very good role model for being calm. And he always would say, you either laugh or you cry. So he was kind of a just very calm approach to life. And growing up with that, when I went out into the real world, like went to college and things like that, and you're bombarded with a lot of not calm, then you look for creating that to comfort yourself and just to survive and get by. That's what, and as a parent of a special needs adult now, I've needed to have calm through homeschooling, and now he's an adult just every day. And I use it, I learned a lot of the tools through his journey with autism and teaching him coping tools. And I really learned a lot through him, I'd say.
So what are some of the tips and techniques that you practice to maintain the calmness in your household?
Well, I think one of the first things too they did with him too is the identifying your emotions and being in tune with yourself. And then the breathing, which is hard. A lot of times people dismiss that, but there's all different kinds of breathing to do. And then there's different kinds of meditations to do, 10-minute meditations, body scan meditations. And then pretty much your senses, you're using all your senses, things you can look at, calming pictures, listening to the calming music, different smells, aromatherapy, just different activities, art activities, projects people do, and even exercise. I think there's different levels of calmness too. So, I'm a pretty calm person, but sometimes my mind is racing and I can't just go do one of those, body scan meditations or breathing. I need to do some exercise first and bring myself down. And then maybe I'll do even prayer time. I'll do some prayer time. Then I'll do one of those 10-minute meditations or body scan where you're, laying down and you can really get into a deeper state of calm. So there's a lot of things. What I've learned also with my son is that everybody's unique, and what works for one person is not going to work for another person, or even what might work for you one day in one situation. That calming tool is not going to necessarily work for you the next day in a different situation, So it's really good to kind of collect or make a toolbox, if you will, of different things that you can use. And you can just either, have a list of them and try them out and rate them. What works best for you? How do you feel after you do this? Some things work, some things don't.
Can you give us like one particular event in your life where you've had to use that calmness and had to like stop yourself and use the calmness to help get you through the situation?
Well, I pretty much every day I do that. There's, I remember the first time I'd say I did calmness, and back then, this was back in college, you just kind of did things. It wasn't named a calming tool or anything. but you get overwhelmed studying social stuff, whatever. And I would just listen to music, put my headphones on, listen to some music, and just look out the window at the leaves blowing in the tree, you know. And at that time, that was calming to me. Looking back at it, I see, yeah, that was a calming tool. But like now, you know, when my son's having a difficult time and there's some difficult behaviors, it's like, you know, you handle that, try to get him to use his tools and calm down. But then I'll come up to my room and just close the door and do some deep breathing or pray or whatever you need to do to kind of get yourself down. And then maybe, you know, when he goes off to his program, and if I have some time, then maybe I'll do one of like a body scan or something and really, you know, really get myself super calm. I try to do the body scan maybe a couple times a week. It's good to get to that really deep state. You know, at least once a week is good. Your body just needs that. It can't be at a stressful level all the time. It's not healthy for you, and you can't make good choices.
You keep referring to this toolbox. Can you explain to everybody what, I mean, because I'm not very familiar with I know what a toolbox is, but not this particular toolbox.
It's like it's not a real toolbox, but it's, you know, it's the idea of a tool, things that you can use and pull on in to make you feel better, like breathing or squeezing those people that have the fidgets or a squeezy ball or something like that. You know, just even different activities that you enjoy doing. So I think, you know, you could probably Google it online. They have, you know, lists of calming activities. Get a list even and try some different things. Does, you know, painting watercolor make me feel calm? Does, you know, doing this breathing make me feel calm? So, you know, you got to try different things. And then when you're in that state, you say, you know, maybe I should go and take a break and do some coloring. You know, I used to do coloring. Now, some people coloring, not calming for them. They can't sit there. It's, you know, so that wouldn't be a good tool for them to use. I think the easiest tool, which is the most dismissed one, and you know, my husband thinks it's BS sometimes, but because it's hard to implement it with children, is the breathing. But I think the best thing about the breathing is it's free. We do it all the time. And it is the easiest to implement anywhere, anytime, discreetly. Nobody knows you're even doing it. So it's right there. So, but it's something that you really have to practice. And, you know, I've worked with my son for a long time. You know, with little kids, you have to do, you know, they have pictures they can trace, or the box breathing, or putting a stuffed animal on their stomach and watching it go up and down. You're getting more in tune with yourself. But I know Gary had shared his 4-7-8 breathing. That's been really helpful. I've gotten my son to do it, and he does his fingers. He can count when to breathe in and hold and breathing out. But that deep, slow breathing really brings your cortisol levels down, your heart rate down, and you just get to a place where you can move on. You make good choices and do whatever you need to do. So, I mean, I tried to do that a couple times a day, you know, but it's a practice. You really have to commit to practicing it, like you're brushing your teeth, make it part of your day.
So we're just going to call him Ed, since that's your son's name. Can he, does he know when to do the breathing on his own, or do you have to sit down and talk to him?
I've been that 4-7-8 breathing. I've been trying to get him to do it in the morning or in the evening. And that's the thing we're trying to, with his program that he's at too, is trying to get him to realize when to use these different tools. Now, sometimes he's starting to learn that, you know, oh, he'll squeeze his hands and breathe, you know, but he won't do the deep breathing necessarily. But he's realizing he's getting rewarded now. If he independently thinks of, this is a good time to go to a different room or do some breathing, he's getting rewarded. So they're kind of training him when he decides it's a good time to use one of his tools to prevent himself from any behaviors that wouldn't be appropriate.
Okay. I actually had to do the birthday cake breathing this morning with my daughter, because she went surfing this morning, and she had a really hard time getting on the board or getting up, and she was very, very frustrated. And we sat down on the board together and we did the breathing, and, you know, I just I had to get her to calm down and relax to get out there and enjoy herself.
Right. You need that you can't, it's green light, no green light if you can't function. So and even I was going to do the 4-7-8 one day with him. And he even said, I want to do the candle one because he just wasn't at that level of calmness to do that 4-7-8 breathing, that he just, okay, I'm going to breathe this in and I've even, gotten some spices or candles or whatever here. You want to smell this, smell it, just to practice that breathing too, especially, with kids, you want to, you're going to have to help them practice.
Just don't give them any black pepper. That would hurt.
No.
So are there any books that you can help other individuals, or anything that you have put into your toolbox that you can, besides the breathing, that you can let our listeners know about?
Well, there's the different, some of the things that, Eddie has used in his programs have been helpful for me because I've gotten to understand things, so there's, the zones of regulation, that's just being aware of your emotions. And those like that Inside Out movies, we haven't seen the second one yet, but they're good for especially kids. And I think they're good for adults too, to identify the different emotions and how to react to appropriate things and where you are. Because if you can't identify that you are not in a calm state, then you're not going to know what to do or do anything about it. But so I think identifying what zone or what emotion you're having and then what to do about it. You don't really think of those things. So that was a really helpful one. We do circles of control. That's another idea you can see on probably Google or whatever, but just things that you're in charge of and things that you're not in charge of. So, I mean, that's calming to know, hey, you know what, you're getting all upset about other people's business. And then you're like, hey, wait a minute, that's not my job. And it's like a weight's lifted off kind of. It's like, I don't need to get involved in this. So, you give yourself permission to not make that your problem kind of. So I think that idea is helpful. Some other things were, so there's all different calm apps and on like YouTube, there's 10-minute meditations. I know Calm has one and Goodful. Those are two, just 10 minutes, just very calm voices. And they just walk you through different things. Being present is one of them. One book that I read recently, it's kind of creating a clutter-free environment in your home is The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up by Marie Kondo. And that's just, I think creating a calm space in your home is helpful as well. So there were some good tips. I started, it's a big undertaking, doing her book, but it gives you ideas and it gives you permission to let go of things as well. Like, they serve their purpose. It's okay to let go of them. All those little things, I think help add to calmness. Also with Eddie too, there's Cosmic Kids yoga. There's different yoga videos on too. This woman, Jamie, there's some parts of it that is like a Zen den and a peace out. So it's like a before bedtime kind of meditation. I do them with him and, they work for me. So, especially if you have kids, I think if kids of today can be taught these tools now, what a great place they're going to be in when they're our age. It's like, I wish we had all this, open and available to us. That would have been helpful, but I'm glad we have it now. So, but there's just so many tools out there. And I think you really just need to check out different things and see what works for you.
Gotcha.
I use a emotions journal with my daughter and it works very well. She logs her emotions, how she's feeling, but it goes back to something somebody had taught me is like, what color emotions do you feel? And then label that color, labeling your emotions a color. I forgot exactly how it goes, but it helps you recognize what emotions you're feeling. And then you can turn around and live in that emotions and let it pass, per se.
That's what they kind of do with zone regulation. It was you had your red zone, which was your angry, flying off the handle zone. And then your yellow zone was kind of, you're excited a little bit. And then your green zone, hey, you're calm and everything's good and you can learn and you can work and be safe. And then you got your blue zone where you're down, so kind of simple, but it just had him identifying those within himself and then having well, what do I do if I'm in this zone? And then practicing those tools. And this has been going on since he was little. So, I mean, he's very, he understands them, but it's getting him to pick up on yourself, monitoring yourself, being aware of little things that you do. Really, it's being about and being in the present mind, focusing on yourself. Like I can see sometimes he'll be clenching his teeth or making little noises. And I'm like, do you think it's a good time to do some breathing? Like we'll do 5-finger breathing. We'll do the breathing in and for each finger. So just trying to get him to recognize that. And then just even recognizing it in myself sometimes. That's what, when you have that time away by yourself and you take that deep breath and you can feel your shoulders relax and you didn't realize how maybe tense or upset you were previously. So just doing that throughout the day on a constant basis, you just got to make it part of your life.
How does your other son and your husband, how do they do the same things? I know you said Ed, your husband doesn't believe in the breathing.
Right. Him and John, they are more like, oh yeah, this is like a waste of time. I'm not like, they don't have the patience necessarily to do it. And they haven't been trained like my other son has been kind of trained since he was younger as part of his school therapies and everything. That was, he got rewarded for doing those too. My husband sees me doing the breathing and the yoga. I mean, they do exercise. That's their thing, exercise.
I know that he works out, like lifts a lot. He's huge.
Right.
Doesn't breathing come into that? Like I know, like when you're getting ready to lift heavy, you want to inhale and exhale as you're lifting. So
definitely,
it's the same. It's the same idea.
He does, that's a good point I could bring up to him because he already does that, and he trains both of our sons, and he tells them when to breathe and when to do this. So making that point to him that, hey, you're doing this breathing and you can just, I told him earlier, I said, breathing is the easiest thing that's overlooked or dismissed because it's, you have to have the patience to do it. It's free. And why wouldn't you give it a try? It's scientifically shown to reduce your heart rate, help with your overall health. It's like, why not experiment? Just give it a try, really dedicate yourself to it for a week or two, see how you feel after it. You didn't lose any money. There's no bad side effects to breathing. So
there's bad side effects of not breathing.
Yeah. And it's such an easy thing to use, especially, if you're in a meeting or you're in a difficult situation, you can breathe. You can't always go get a stress ball or do some watercolor painting and, but you can always do breathing, at least get yourself to a calm state.
Calmness takes practice. It took me a long time to realize what a calm state meant. Could you give us an example of when you failed at getting yourself calm and you overreacted?
I would say, just times that were emotional. Well, everybody's going to be upset when their parent dies, but that's the only time you lose it and you're sobbing and I think that's acceptable. That's, it's your parent. But you try to, breathe, but you're, sobbing and stuff. So, I mean, that was the only times I can think that I've like uncontrollable, if you will, upset wise. I can't, I'm trying to think if there's any time that I was really angry. I'm sure there have been, but it's, I know losing control is not beneficial and it's not going to solve anything. So like I've never gone and broken anything or done anything like that or whatever, because you're hurting yourself, so pretty much you go for a walk or listen to music or, I learned from my father. I never really saw him get too angry, but he'd go outside or he did his painting, or you have to find that thing that's an appropriate outlet for your emotions. I was thinking, and I don't know, Gary, if you ever had him as a teacher, but talking about knowing what deep calmness is, I was remembering back to health class in 7th grade. I don't know if you ever had Mr. Locast.
I did. I wouldn't have ever said his name, but now that you said it, I did.
Because that's what he had done. This was back in 1987. He made our class do it must have been a body scan meditation, because we all got comfortable, put our heads on the desk, and it went through And I think there was one kid that had fallen asleep at the end of the class. People were like drooling on their desks. They were so calm. If you really listen to it and follow it, you go into such a deep state of calmness.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the first time I ever experienced that. And I still remembered it, today. So
I wonder what would happen if that became mainstream back in the 80s.
yeah.
It would be like looking at what we're doing to our kids now, like teaching them these tools and putting them in this toolbox too, so that they can harness the calmness,
I just remember the impact it had on my body, and how, everybody was just like, wow, I don't know how many other people can remember it, but it was very powerful. It's like you don't realize listening to a voice guiding you through calming different parts of your body. If you're really focused, you have to be focused on it and paying attention, but how much that works, just the power of the voice telling you, what to do.
Absolutely.
That's why I love doing those. I try to do that like once a week now. And it's helpful, to go to sleep.
So as you continue practicing calming, how does it improve your self-improvement, confidence, and personal growth?
Well, I feel like it, when I'm at a calm state, I can know myself better. I can control myself better, and I can make good choices, and I can be the best version of myself. So I feel the best about myself. So it's good for your mental, it's good for your physical, and probably spiritual too, but you feel good about yourself because you feel like you're in control of yourself and you're making good choices. So I think that's a benefit. And when you're calm, like with, working with my son, we're trying to get him to have a calm body and be appropriate in his expression of his emotions, because when he doesn't, then you're blocking out opportunities that you could have. You're decreasing the people you could interact with or opportunities out in public you can do. So the more in control of yourself and calm you are, the more you open yourself up to opportunities with meeting people and going places and doing things.
Absolutely.
Sometimes though you feel like guilty doing some of these calming things, like, I'm going to do adult coloring or something. And people are like, when do you have time? Why do you have time to do that? I think it's about making time and setting up boundaries as well, and not feeling guilty about doing these things. And if you do it all day and don't do anything else, okay, maybe. But I think it's really, and I think society now kind of realizes the importance of mental health, and you need to make space for calmness. And I think too, with, increase with cell phones and social media too, you really have to set up boundaries and not take calls at a certain time. Or like when I'm driving in the car, I do not answer my phone. I'm in the car. That's a place where you can be listening to music or whatever you want to do and have quiet time. That's a place during your day that you could have on the way to work or home from work or wherever you're doing, calm time for yourself. But it's up to people to set up the boundaries, turn off their phone, especially even before bed, get a better night's sleep.
So do you teach both your kids boundaries?
Well, probably more Eddie.
Okay.
I'm with you more. John's kind of on his own, does his own thing. I actually did show John the value cards today.
Mm-hmm.
I said, put them out and you got to try to pick 20. He's like, this is hard. This is impossible. It's, so just getting him to think about what values are, because he's going to be a senior this year. And I remember the graduation speech last year, one teacher was talking about the importance of know your values and know what's important to you,
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, this is a good opportunity for him to be looking at these and thinking about what's important to him. And that was a hard thing explaining, because he's like, oh, I don't understand what these are. And, so it was good for him to realize, I said, these are what's important to you, because he was looking at like peace. And he's like, well, I'm not going to pick that one because that's impossible. There's no peace in the world. And I said, well, it doesn't have to be what there is, it's what's important to you, like I said, calmness is very important to me. Am I always calm? Do I always achieve calmness? No, but that's like my higher goal that I try to achieve.
Back to the boundaries thing, like,
yeah,
I asked because when I first started this work, the coach that I had talked to me about boundaries, and I had no idea what boundaries were. he described it as rules in your life, as if I was a business and these are the rules that I set for myself, boundaries. And if you
Right.
broke those rules, and so if you wanted to be in my life, that would make you like an employee. And if you broke those rules, then I would have to address the situation, either fire you, which would be remove you from my life, or make you aware of the boundaries or rules so that you wouldn't break them across that line again. Prior to 4 years ago, I didn't have a boundary in my life. To teach kids that, I think, is an incredible idea.
Well, I'm just thinking, even just personally, for my own personal self, setting up boundaries with like technology and having it interrupt, like with phone calls and stuff. You didn't used to get a phone call, unless the actual phone on the wall rang. You weren't getting all these notifications and all these interruptions and ding dings and all that stuff. It was like a phone call. So, or, like all the texting and, like when you left your job, you were home, unless you were a doctor on call for real. But, most of the people, everybody's like 24/7 that you can be reached now. And I know, like, my husband, when he was a teacher, that was one of the things that was, following boundaries. Like, school is over now. Now it's my family time. Respecting that and not being everybody on call all the time. Everybody needs family and personal time. So, but it's up to people, I think, to set those boundaries for themselves, too. Like, I'm not going to go look at all these emails. I'm not going to use my phone, or not. I'm not going to have my phone in my bedroom. That was one thing. I don't let the kids have their phones in their bedroom. Now, Eddie doesn't hardly use his phone. We're trying to get him to use the phone. John, the phone's attached to him. And it's like, no, that phone needs to stay plugged in downstairs so you can go to sleep.
We have a quote that we found from the Dalai Lama that sums all this up, and I love it. It's a calm mind brings strength and self-confidence, and that is very important in life. So, and what you're teaching your kids and your family, that is that right there. So the Dalai Lama said it himself, so it's got to be real.
Yeah. Well, that's what I trying my best,
Gotcha. Well, you were showing your John about the value card. So I want to let you guys, all the listeners, know that this episode is brought to you by Northman Coaching and their Oak Value Cards. Are you looking for a little boost in motivation and self-improvement? If so, then check out our Oak Value Cards and empower yourself with our motivational and insightful core value cards. Enter promo code calmness for 20% off your order.
Thank you again so much, Trudy. So talking to all the listeners out there and going back through, aside from getting a toolbox, learning to breathe, setting boundaries, finding time, what else can somebody do that is looking to find calmness in their life?
I think you just got to do all those things and then just try to think about your day, like, because you're not going to do something unless it is already kind of part of your day. So see what kind of things you can do that's already part of your day and giving yourself that alone time sometimes, or, just even like, at work, maybe at lunch doing like mindful eating. There's some videos on mindful eating, just eating slower, really being present in the present moment. If you listen to music at work, or just get a walk in during lunch or after lunch or whatever, getting outside in nature, trying to really incorporate it throughout the day at different points. Even, just cooking dinner, smelling, really appreciating the food you have, and just using your senses. I think all the senses really help, being present, and make sure if you're, just like kids they're in the present moment. They're really enjoying their life because they don't remember what just happened. They have no idea about the future. And it's kind of going back to that childlike, the good parts of childhood, those kind of central things that really make the present moment special and calm.
We were just talking about that earlier. Me and Rob talking about the childlike mentality, I guess you want to call it. Like, even like I told you earlier with me and my daughter with the breathing today, I have never seen her afraid to surf. And then out of nowhere, I'm like, and I called Rob, I'm like, where does a kid develop this fear? I mean, she hasn't fallen off or gotten hurt or attacked by a shark, or she's had no issues that I'm aware of. And I'm aware of a lot of things when it comes to her surfing and stuff. Where does this fear come from? Just out of nowhere.
It's mental. You know what? I looked up a thing too about because I think one of the things you were talking about was like in high pressure situations, and they were talking about athletes and athletes choking, whether you're, say, golfing or throwing or batting or whatever. If you're thinking too much in your head about how is my arm moving, what do I need to do, and you're kind of stuck inside yourself, that's when you trip up and screw up. But if you have an external focus, if you're like looking at a spot wherever, or looking at the pole or the hole or whatever you're supposed to be aiming at, that focus is what's going to keep you calm, because you have something external to focus on. And then people do a whole bunch better, apparently. So
I agree. I didn't never call it external focus, but yeah, I see it a lot in sports. You see a lot of people that just try too hard and they're not half as good as they once were.
They're overthinking it. They're mentally, whatever, because especially they said, professional athletes are just, they're so used to throwing or batting or whatever they've been doing it. It's like mental, like muscle memory, and they don't really need to think about it. So when they start to overthink about it, that's when they trip up or screw up. Or even a person who's giving a speech, if you're listening to yourself and thinking too much about how you sound or what you're saying, you're kind of inside your head, versus if you're thinking about what the topic is, or you're just staring at something outside on the wall, you're not inside your head. And that it's being focused outside yourself is supposed to calm you down more.
And that's when when I meditate, that's when I am definitely stepping outside.
Right.
So question then, so what can, obviously with Eddie, you practice this, so it's part of his life. What can you do to make this part of John's life or your husband's life? Like, so that, how can you teach this to somebody else?
Well, like for them, Ed's an adult and John's almost an adult. You have to kind of make them see the value in it. And especially somebody who hasn't practiced it from childhood or anything, you're taking an adult who's never done it or thinks it's silly or whatever. You got to have them see the value in it. Like, look, this is proven to decrease your blood pressure, do whatever, and try to, convince them to practice it. But, it's up to that person individually, really, if they want to make a difference in their lives, to do it. And, instead of panicking or having an anxiety attack, hey, how about trying this? But you really need to try these things before you have some kind of attack or breakdown or whatever, because you can't really do it in the moment. So that's like with Eddie, we've been practicing these things. So now that when something's happening, we go right to it. We know it's like automatic. Breathe. We know what to do. Go to another room. Whatever you need to do. It's you've practiced it, so it's not this unnatural thing to do. There's so many different kinds of breathing, and you just Google it. There's all different kinds you can try. But I think the most effective ones are the deepest. You can breathe in, the holding, like that 4-7-8, and I even try to extend it even longer than that.
For more breathing, look into Wim Hof. He does you extended more, like holding your breath for a very long period of time.
Yeah.
When I first got into the breath work, the Wim Hof, I was up to holding my breath for almost 2.5 minutes. I got to. Which
wow.
You get lightheaded. It's almost like a high, if you will.
Yeah. You got to be careful with that.
But it's amazing. It's truly amazing. So.
Yeah, I think people have to just give it a try. And I mean, most of these things are free. These ideas, these, pictures or apps, and all the stuff I do is pretty much free, so it's just about making that time for yourself, not feeling guilty about taking the time for yourself, and just making it a habit, making it part of a lifestyle. And
absolutely.
Just, try one little thing, and some of the things I remember my old library used to have an adult coloring, and I would go there, Ed would stay home with the kids and I would go, and the woman had some tea and nice calm music on, and we would just sit there and color. And if you wanted to join the conversation, you could, but it was just a time away, and it was, just a calm time. So, finding things out in your community, even like that.
Well, you seem like you've got a handle on it. I mean, everything you've talked about is everything that I do, and Rob does a lot of it.
Yeah.
But the meditation and breathing, it's crazy, because that is the key to calmness. And me for your whole life, and 10 years 20 years ago, that was not, no one did that stuff.
Right. No, I think it's hard too. Eddie's autistic. Ed and I are probably on the spectrum somewhere. He's like a fast kind of person. There's ADHD around. To have that busy mind is going all the time. So it's hard to get that like harness and calm down. So it's like you really got to practice these things and just being aware of yourself and what state you're in and what you need to do to get yourself to that green zone, that calm zone. So it's just like learning about yourself first, identifying what you need to do or what works for you. And it's different for everybody. There's tons more tools out there too. Oh, I like this. This makes me feel calm.
And for the listeners out there, if you would like to go further or deeper on this topic of calmness, or you need help building your toolbox, reach out to us. We want to know you and hear your powerful story. Chat with us or connect with us by booking your free session on our website, northmancoaching.com. And folks, that's a wrap on today's episode. And of course, thank you all out there for listening. Thank you, Miss Trudy, for coming in and speaking with us today. If you enjoyed today's episode, please don't forget to subscribe to our podcast, Living by Oak Values. And if you feel generous, leave us a review. It really helps us out and keeps these conversations going. For more updates and exclusive content, follow us on Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, and visit our website, northmancoaching.com. We'll be back next week with another exciting episode that you don't want to miss. Until then, keep discussing your values, embracing the journey, take care, and stay authentic.